And we're live.
Hey everybody, welcome to the CrackBerry podcast, episode 119 for October 1st. Today we're talking BlackBerry Passport, and we've got Blaze here with us and CrackBerry Kevin himself.
Yay! Woo!
So who's excited? We've all got passports. They're all very large.
Kevin's really excited. He actually just gave us a rundown, or basically like a graph of his excitement, letting us know exactly how it started and where it ended up. So,
no, I mean, here's the thing. Right after the launch event, Adam and I recorded a podcast. Now, it was really early in the morning that we had to wake up to do all this stuff, and maybe I was tired. So there was a lot of comments saying, "Kevin, you don't even like the passport. That was the least passionate thing." And I'm like, I think people came into it hating me because I bought an iPhone the week before, so then all they saw was, like, they put that on me, and then they took it off, and they're like, Kevin's just hates the passport, and that's it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, this is very clear what's happened with the passport. So I started off, like everybody, very skeptical, right? Like, we saw the leaks, we saw the photos, and it's like, what the is that, right? That's the only thing you could think when you first saw it, because it looks so different. I mean, it doesn't look like any other phone on the market right now. Skeptical. You see the phone in real life, you're like, oh, it actually looks better in real life than it does in person. Then you pick it up and you're like, you don't know what the hell to do with it. This thing is really wide. It's square, right? Like, or the screen is square. I guess it's still a rectangle, and it doesn't feel like a keyboard BlackBerry, because for the most recent years, most keyboard BlackBerries have that a little tighter feel, pretty comfortable. You know where your thumbs are going to rest on the keys. And all of a sudden, this has the keys a little lower, the space bar baked into the bottom row. Obviously, there's the touchscreen stuff, but that's once you turn on the phone. I'm still talking about this adjustment of just holding the thing, and it's kind of different, right? Like, you're not holding it like you have other BlackBerries. You're holding it like it wants you to hold it, so you don't drop it, and you're going to get your thumbs in the right spot. An adjustment period. Okay, fine. Turn it on. You're like, holy shit, this screen is big and amazing. So the screen is like the feature, right? You're like, I get why they're saying work wide, work wide. But then you start to use it, and there's an adjustment period. So, I went from skeptical to kind of intrigued to a little bit skeptical when I first held it to kind of excited when I saw the screen. Then I started using it and typing, and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of slow on this keyboard. Like, I can type faster on any other BlackBerry physical keyboard or any other touchscreen device. It actually slowed me down typing, and I'm like, well, that's not good, Like, I don't want to slow down. I always want to go faster, faster, faster. So now I'm kind of skeptical again. But then 3 days later, I'm like, you know what? I'm starting to get into the groove. It doesn't feel crazy every time I pick it up. It just feels like it feels, right? You adjust to it. So then I go through this adjustment period, and now I think I'm 3 weeks into it. And honestly, now I'd say in the last week is where I finally am like, I'm in love. And the thing is, I have every new phone around me here. My SIM card's in the passport. I can be using the iPhone 6 Plus. You guys know I will use whatever the frick I want. I like leaving the house with the passport. I like using the passport in the house. And it's the most complete BlackBerry now, where I don't feel like I have for the past couple of years, where if I don't have a second phone with me that I might be missing something. Because honestly, the ecosystem is filled in enough for what I use. Now, that might not apply to everybody, but for me, what I need for work, whether it's apps like Slack, which is a messaging platform, or things like Trello, which we use for productivity and managing our editorial flow, to pretty much every instant messenger is on the platform now, minus Google Hangouts, at least as far as I use them. There might be others. Everything I really need is there. So I can leave the house with the passport. I'm fast on the keyboard, or at least as fast as I feel now. It's not alien. I love the screen. The battery life is freaking awesome. I've been going 2 days every time, so I'm not charging it every night like I have been with most phones. 2 days. I don't even worry about it so far. Traveling, roaming in the U.S., I was getting battery life through the day, like the day to night, no problem, which is always an issue with any, when you're roaming, you always eat more battery. So I really love the passport. It just took, I think, 2 weeks, maybe even up to 3 weeks to fall in love with it. So my kind of chart is like, boing, at the end it's swing. I like the passport. So that's kind of where I'm at now. It's funny. I sent an email to Rogers this morning because I got my passport as a review unit, which is awesome. Thank you, BlackBerry. But I mean, I only thank you if you don't want it back. If you want it back, but you're not getting it back, so deal with it. Sorry. Please don't take it back. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, I want to buy the white one from Rogers, but I don't know who's selling the white one. Where can I get it?
No one is actually selling the white one.
I want the white one. I want the matching pair.
It's not out yet. You'd have to go to Dubai and get one because retailers in Dubai are actually selling them.
Okay, well, I want a white passport. If anybody's watching this, I'll pay cash. Just get it to me. And then, I wrote this article. Sorry, and Blaze, this podcast is for you guys, but I'm doing my Kevin catch up after the last one.
Get it out of the way. Just go. Just get it all out.
So the phone itself, very few complaints, and I have more articles I'm going to be writing because, I kind of said this when I fired myself from CrackBerry. Look, when I have things I want to say, I'm going to say them, and there's actually a lot I want to say right now. And one of the articles that will come soon is kind of CrackBerry Kevin's smartphone hierarchy of needs revisited. Because if you look at the basics of what they put into this device, we're seeing no compromise, I think better than any BlackBerry in recent years. Battery life, awesome. Camera, great. Keyboard, maybe the one area where it's initially a step backwards, and then I think you'll get back to being as good. I don't think you'll get back 100%. I don't know if you'll be faster. I could be wrong, but keyboard's good. Radio connectivity, though. So last night was the ultimate test, and I was really excited. I went out for dinner to celebrate because Mobile Nations, we set a new epic milestone. We broke 100 million page views for the last month from our Google Analytics account. So 100 million page views. That's something I've always wanted to do back in the day when, 7 years ago, I'm like, one day I want to get, 100 million page views in a month. Did it for the first time yesterday, so I'm like, I'm going out for dinner to get to drink. I went out. The restaurant I went to is a restaurant I've been going to for years where as soon as you walk in the door, your cell phone quits working without fail. Every phone I've owned, BlackBerry, Android, iPhone, they will always quit working. In that restaurant, nobody's phones work. Passport was working the whole time. I was keeping up on, reading apps, email, text. Everything was fine, and I'm like, I don't know what they did to it, but nothing I've owned recently, nothing has been working in there ever. So, and I was with a buddy whose phone still wasn't working. He had an HTC One M7 or M8, and no reception, and Passport was nailing it. So then I came home from there, and I was like, you know what? People can gripe about little things and that, but this phone gets the basics that matter to a BlackBerry user and a power user really, really well. And even things like that I did an article on the the inbox with the instant actions. So now I can I wake up in the morning, I grab the Passport. It's quicker for me to use my phone than to go to a computer to churn through my email, because inevitably I'm going to have a bunch of spam, some things I need to take action on later when once I sit down. I need to scan to make sure I didn't miss the world blowing up. So now I'm like, delete, 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 which is archive for Gmail. I'll read something, tap to mark is on right on the left. Everything I need is there. I can plow through all my communications fast. So now if I pick up any other phone, I feel like, I complained a little about the typing on the Passport being not as fast as I'd ideally love, but everything else feels slow in terms of that messaging, email triage messaging. And it's really funny because I don't know if I've ever heard BlackBerry use the word triage before in this context. And then during the launch event, Jeff Gadway talked about it. And I was like, triage, that's from my editorial where I bitched about the email not being good enough. And I swear, I'm taking full credit for him using that word and for the changes they made, because I was just hating it. I was like, I can't use this thing. It's too slow to delete emails, BB10. And then they fixed it, and they're like, now we have a great email triage experience. I'm like, oh my God, you do. And you answered my dreams and my questions with, so I'm excited.
My prayers for my
prayers have been answered. I could do stuff so fast. So honestly, I'm like, foreseeable future, I don't see any phone on the market that I would want to use instead as my daily driver. And that includes, I've got one new iPhone here. I'll pick up some Android L to play with it, but everything. And it's just this is doing it. So I'm really excited because I've been sort of, from fanboy to, blind fanboy to you got to win me over fan, right? Like, I'm not just a blind fanboy. Sorry, I've never been a blind fanboy. I've been a harder to please fanboy, and I've been really waiting to be pleased, and this is making me happy. The risk, of course, is, like I said, even I went through this kind of period before I really, really fell in love with it. And, for the average consumer who's never used a BlackBerry before, I don't know if they would make it out of the store with it because of that. It just might be too different. And, I know how to use BB10 and the gestures. So if you combine the changes in the hardware with learning a new OS, I don't know if this is going to be, a phone the average person can just pick up and feel good with. It might take them a month or something. It took me a few days before I even felt okay just with the hardware. Never mind.
A few hours, Kevin got his device. He messaged me. He's like, I don't know about this phone, man.
It's true. Honestly, here, I'm going to grab it because I have it right here.
And then,
I was thinking about these.
He came back and said he loved it.
I was thinking about these things, right? The storms. And I was like, oh, honestly, I'm going to swear, cover, mute the car, whatever. This is our new CrackBerry policy. We're going to tell people when we're going to swear. I was fucking worried that we had another BlackBerry storm on our hands. And by that I mean, okay, we're going to be innovative. We're going to try something different. It's going to be like nothing else on the market. And in that case, you know what? I gave the storms, 3 months, and I still never felt comfortable on them. I felt like it was always working against me more than for me.
Yeah.
And with the Passport, I was like, oh, I can see the benefit of the wide screen, but I'm really worried that the phone is, for the benefit it adds, there's going to be too much other crap to get used to that it's never going to kind of equate to an overall benefit. I'm going to be fighting. And if you read some of the review, like the embargoed reviews that came out, I saw that sentiment from some of the tech reviewers, right? Like, yeah, it's different, credit for trying something different, but I don't see what I can, do differently on this phone compared to something else I can have. And those reviews are semi-fair, but I also really think, knowing my curve I went through to get used to this thing, I'm not sure any of those reviews I read, other than Blaze's, had the same reflection of actually working through the period. And look, I get what tech reviewers have to do. They have to pound out these things fast and furious. I honestly almost wish that BlackBerry didn't even give out any phones for review. But what was interesting too is now we've seen amazing. I feel like the night all the embargoed reviews lifted, that the reviews weren't so hot. They were kind of lukewarm on it. But now, at least in Canada here, I keep hearing good things from random people about the Passport. Like even my mom-in-law, right? It's like, oh, BlackBerry's doing good again. Like she's always worried I'm going to be starving on the street because of what she hears in the news. And then, yeah, a lot of people are just like, oh, I heard about the new BlackBerry. It sounds like it's pretty good. So I'm like, this is really interesting. Like the whatever was written doesn't really matter. The overall impression seems to be positive. And now what I've been loving is I've been out a lot with this phone in my hand, and it reminds me, I'm going to run away again, of the good old days of BlackBerry. And I wrote an editorial 2 nights ago talking about the good old days of BlackBerry. And this is the first BlackBerry I ever owned. I think this is a 7290, or on T-Mobile it might have had a different number. I can't even remember. Jeez. I had a Rogers one, which was a slightly different shade of blue. But, when this phone came out, people didn't have a lot of phones like this. You didn't see them, right? You saw little flip phones, you saw little candy bar Nokias, or the LG chocolate. So if you go back to, say, 2004, 2005, this is the equivalent of what this is today compared to a bunch of touchscreen slabs. You have this visually disruptive product. I'm not going to call it a disruptive product yet, but it's a visually disruptive product to what the norms are of a phone. So when I go out and I pull this out of my pocket or I sit it on the table, people are just like, what the hell is this? And Simon, we were talking, and everybody says the same thing. It's a very polarizing device. You look at it and you either love it or you hate it. Or in my case, you just, I don't know, you do both, I think, initially, and it changes over time, and then eventually you land on one. And I'm really loving it now. But I'm having so much fun with it because it's such a conversation starter. I feel like it's a phone that holds up, and part of that is people look at it and they're like, whoa, that's different. What's so, like, why does it look so different? And you're like, well, you tell them about working wide, right? You're like, all the screens today are really, narrow, so you don't see a lot. So you open up a couple things and show them, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I get it. And then you say, look, if you're a person who loves games and movies, maybe it's not the best phone for you because obviously those are all widescreen. But if you're not doing a lot of that on your phone, and everybody's like, yeah, I don't really play a lot of games or watch a lot of movies on my phone anyways. I'm like, yeah, exactly, me neither, right? So then they get that. And then you show them swiping on the keyboard. You're like, hey, look at this. Type some words, swipe, swipe, move the cursor around off the keyboard. And it's like, this is magic. Like it's a new nobody has an expectation that you can swipe on physical keyboards. I mean, I'm still look at it. I'm like, this is Houdini made this phone or something.
Yeah, I had people at the Apple Store even fascinated with that. Yeah, standing in the middle of the Apple Store giving a BlackBerry passport.
It's awesome. And then people will inevitably ask about the apps, but then I say, well, you know what? It's actually really good now. I mean, the Amazon App Store ships on it in addition to BlackBerry, so you can run, all the Android apps or the majority of them. A couple things aren't there, but for the most part, anything you want is there, or you can still get it if you really need to. And I just show them. I'm like, here's all my instant messengers. Here's all my social apps. It doesn't matter if it's Instagram or Tinder or Skype or whatever. It's all there. So I'm like, it's good, right?
I think a lot of the reviewers miss that as well. Like when you go through some of the reviews, a lot of the other people who reviewed the device, they said that like Instagram wasn't available. Well, no, Instagram isn't technically available, but you still can download it.
Well, and the thing is, you have iGran, so you have like iGran that's free in the BB10 App Store. It works great. It's missing a couple features. Yeah. And then, if you really want, you can get that native one still. And I mean, Instagram is probably the one biggie that the average person would be, if they don't understand that, they would be like, no. But again, who's BlackBerry selling this phone to? Like they're not trying to market it to consumers who give a, Instagram rat's ass. And for the ones who do like us, more consumers who like these types of phones also, sure, then you can still get it. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm really having fun with it. And like I said in my, the good old days of BlackBerry are kind of back. It's really true because, when I had this phone, you didn't see a million of them anywhere, right? Or everywhere. You would...
at that point.
Yeah, it was like a status. It was a status, and it was kind of like a club. Like I would just talk to strangers. Oh, how do you like your phone? Blah, blah, blah. It was like it was immediately, here's a person who probably has similar interests to me, business, kind of motivated individual, whatever the word is, because that's why they're using this thing to begin with. And then as BlackBerry took off, and then I go to the bar on a Friday night, and there's an 18-year-old girl with a BlackBerry. I can't just walk up to strangers and be like, hey, how do you like your phone? Now sometimes I would still do that, but it was not cool apparently to do that anymore. So like I always liked the early days of BlackBerry, which wasn't about being #1 in sales or having the most market share. It was just about having a great product that helped you get through the day effectively, that you enjoyed to use, and that you thought the phone was working for you as much as you were working for it. And I feel like BlackBerry got pulled into that consumer space. It was never what they wanted to do, right? Like Apple clearly built the iPhone when they launched it. We're going after the mainstream consumer market with an easy to use the device, blah 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 blah. BlackBerry, they started, we're a two-way wireless pager. We're all about communication. We're all about business, security, enterprise. That's what matters. Utility, battery life, etc. And then, because the carriers were all building data networks and needed phones on the market to sell, and at that time, BlackBerry was the best one. Boom! BlackBerry became the #1 smartphone, not because it was built to be the best smartphone for consumers, but because it was a great smartphone on the market at what it did, and carriers had a need to really sell a lot of them. And it created it helped propel BlackBerry's success up, but it also created the opportunity for somebody else to come in who wasn't so busy keeping up with the demand of their current in-market products to build something new and from sort of ground-up thinking. Arguably, retrospect, BlackBerry could have done that also. Different story for a different podcast. What I'm saying now, though, is it's kind of like the good old days are back again, and I'm really having some fun with this phone. And I think fun is important. If you can buy a product that you actually enjoy, that brings you enjoyment beyond what it does in your hands, it's awesome. And I mean, maybe that'll go away if they sell too many passports, because then you can't talk to the strangers who have them anymore. But I think at least for the next little bit, and I don't think it's going to be a mainstream mass market device, at least not anytime really soon. I think there's a big fun factor there for the next little while, being a passport owner. And I think it comes back to that hierarchy of needs. It's not a phone for everybody, and that's okay. I'm going to quote Phil Nickinson here, who always says, and that's okay. It is okay. They don't need to be #1 in the world with this thing. They just need to sell enough of them that they make some money, and it shows BlackBerry has a spot in the market. And I think with this, they really have. Over the years, we've always had this sort of analogy too of automotive, right? Like, there's no one best car, right? If there was, would everybody just be driving the exact same model? What you have is sports cars and, utility vans, and you do have your Honda Civic that gets good mileage and is easy to operate and affordable for the masses in the middle. And I think BlackBerry here has carved out a niche that is a sustainable niche. It's not necessarily a growing market, but I do think, or at least not a steeply growing market, but I think it's going to be a sustainable thing for the next little while. And, even for me, I'm seeing interest again from people who have lost interest in BlackBerry for a while. So, like, I've been around, I'm sort of a fixture in the space. So when things get interesting, people start calling me and they're like, hey, Kevin, like, what do you think of this and this? And often they're talking about it more from, financial standpoint, that kind of thing. Like, should I be investing again? That kind of stuff. And it's clear the Passport is got everybody's attention. It might not be it's not gonna win over any US-based tech reviewers, I think, in the nearest future. The mainstream. There's going to be some absolutely who love it, but there's going to be lots who just kind of no, move on. They've already forgotten about it. But I think when we look at the sales over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, it's going to be a nice little success story for BlackBerry.
I think it'll be good because a lot of people, even a lot of people that I have come across that have given up on BlackBerry, have asked me about the Passport. Like, even before I was really supposed to essentially be showing it off to people, there were still people that were asking about it. When I took the train to Adams, a guy at what's the name of the train station there? Anyway, he spotted it in my hand, and he was asking about it. And I think that a lot of people, just based on the looks of it, will actually ask about it or at least pick it up. And like I said in my review, it's just odd enough and just quirky enough that it makes people curious. They want to ask about it. They want to see it. They want to know how it works because it just doesn't exactly look normal. And I don't know if it's going to be that massive hit that everybody wants in terms of consumers and stuff like that. But that's not exactly who BlackBerry is going for. Like Kevin noted, they'll work out a small niche market, and hopefully that'll be enough to keep running through on it.
And the other thing is, talking about the niche isn't even BlackBerry users. It's a subset of BlackBerry users because they have the Classic coming up in the pipeline that's going to be launching soon, and the Classic is really now the best of the evolved traditional BlackBerry experience. I would say arguably going from devices like the 9700, which were a really big success story, through the 9000, through the 9900 into the Q10, or maybe the Q10 wasn't that because it got rid of the trackpad, but it's back to really being the extension of the 9900. And what always surprises me is how many 9900s I still see in use right now. These are phones that are off contract. People could have left them already if they wanted to, right? There's been no shortage of opportunities for 9900s in the world, owners in the world, to get onto another phone, whether it's a new BlackBerry or something altogether different. And I really think,
using one.
I think you're going to see the Classic get a big upgrade cycle. The upgrade cycle BlackBerry was aiming for when BB10 first launched, between the Q10 and the Z10, that ultimately never really materialized. I think you actually have a chance now for it to happen in the Classic. And what's amazing is the Passport is paving the way for the Classic to be the bigger sales success story. Because now all of a sudden the Passport gets people's attention. It gets, like I said, I think overall sentiment and reviews against it are going to be good. That it is a device that has its place in the market, even though it's not for everybody. And the thing is, it stands out. It makes it. I think the good thing about it is, if they made the Passport look more like other BlackBerries, your average person would see it and be like, oh, it's a BlackBerry, if they're one of the people on the other side of the fence, they'd be like, oh, poor sucker, he's still in a BlackBerry, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now what this does is it's like, oh, you got the new, what do you think of it? It's totally okay and cool, kind of, to be rocking the BB again if you're rocking the Passport. And now it's going to sort of relift everything up, I think, from where it was. So it's really it's almost like marketing for the Classic if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
And if you look at how fast they sold out online from Amazon and ShopBB, I think it's exceeding maybe those initial expectations of what they would do with it. So I think, how can you look at that as anything but good news right now?
Yeah, they didn't want to fill the channel inventory full of devices that may or may not sell, so they have a certain amount there just to judge how well it was actually going to sell, and they sold out over the 200,000 of them, and there's more expected. I believe it was like on October 6th, Germany starts shipping, and all the Canadian carriers went live today. But I'm actually really interested in what Simon has to say about the device, because between you and I, we've had the device for quite a long period of time, probably longer than most people. But Simon only picked up his device in Toronto on launch day. So
on Thursday, you've been using it since Thursday?
Yeah.
And today, wait, and what day is today? It's Wednesday?
Yeah.
So I think you're not, I'm going to predict you're like still going through a slight awkward love-hate.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the few people that I've shown this to, like right off the bat, they love it. I think the visual differentiation counts for a whole lot. And even on a more kind of traditional scale in terms of like build quality and screen resolution, stuff like that, it does very well. But yeah, the keyboard takes some getting used to. Having the spacebar dab smack in the middle of the row of keys is a little odd for me. But yeah, no, it still feels great. It's good to be using a BlackBerry again. I mean, I'm using a Galaxy S5 day to day usually. And even just spending, a day on this thing, then going back to the S5, already I'm missing having this extra wide screen. Even just for reading emails, it's altogether luxurious by comparison. So yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest strength right now, as we were talking about earlier, is just having people talk about it. That it is different enough, but not arbitrarily different. That it's different to be extra wide. To get people's attention and still managing to hit all the other right notes.
I think that's a good point, right? Innovation for the sake of innovation is not a good strategy, right? You have to innovate because you want to make it better and because it is ultimately better. Yeah. And I think this is definitely innovation that is helping them for the sake of innovation and standing out, but it actually does provide benefits. Is it altogether better? It's going to depend on who you are. For some people, the standard touchscreen full slab form factor is going to be where you want to go, especially if you're doing a lot of, video watching, games, and you don't have a job that relies on instant communication to retain having that job.
Can I just say I don't get the whole video watching thing? Because I do watch the odd video on my device, and I have absolutely no issues with watching video on the BlackBerry.
Oh, but it's not that there's an issue. It's just you have bigger black bars, and you have a big screen, but ultimately your viewing size of the picture isn't that big.
Yeah.
For a phone that weighs as much as it does and is overall as big, if I take, even a Z30 sideways, right, or a 6 Plus or whatever, this is going to be nicer for a video, I think.
Yeah, I suppose. But the amount of videos that I watch is just like quick YouTube videos, so it's not really.
Yeah, it's pretty low. I mean, it depends on who you are, though, right? Like, we're so tainted because we're typically surrounded by computers and tablets and phones and TVs and stuff that you're going to go to the biggest screen available. Other people, it's their phone is what they're going to rely on. But
it's really easy to get hung up on the hardware for the Passport, but I think it's worth talking a little bit about the BlackBerry 10.3 too. I mean, it's a huge jump. A lot of BlackBerry reviewers have been using the leaked version for a while and all that, but for me, a lot of it was brand new, especially the triage stuff.
The hub refinements for going through your inbox with instant actions and that are awesome. I don't know how stupid I am because I wrote that editorial on how awesome the instant actions are, and then I wrote, I wish I could set mark as unread as an instant action, and then everybody in the comments immediately said, Kevin, are you just on crack or confused? Or are you trying to have more options? You just tap on the email icon to the left of the email, and if it's read, it'll go to unread. I've never done that in my life. Did that get there in 10.2, 10.1, or has it been there since 2005 and I've just never used it?
That'd be a Chris question.
The instant actions?
No, marking an email as unread by tapping it on the left side.
No, I think that was new in 10.3 because before you actually had to go up to the top bar in between like the line and the date and everything like that and hold on it and then mark prior.
No, not mark prior as read or delete or all. I mean an individual message like.
Yeah.
So I just tap that icon and it goes back to being unread from read. Or was that there at BB10 the whole time? I've never thought to tap it. I don't know what it says about me. I'm glad I fired myself because I don't deserve to have
I should probably
an EIC title.
There in previous versions either.
Yeah, because my thing is I've always been like, 1 second. I've always been in an email, and then I pull out the menu, and then I'm tapping it off the options screen, and I'm like, well, this is slow as hell. Why is it so slow? And that's how I had to delete emails, so I always assumed, okay, I'm either deleting it or I'm marking as unread. I never thought to tap that frickin' icon on the inbox.
I only started tapping it on the passport because it was different. Like, they changed how it was done.
I mean, it makes me feel better if that's the case, but I'm like, yeah, email triage now is amazing for me, and I still deal with a lot of email. And other apps too, right, pull in there, so you can do a lot with it.
There's still one thing that they can improve on that front, though. Do you remember how they used to handle unread emails with the keyboard shortcut on legacy BlackBerry OS, where you would hit U and it would go to the oldest unread message, and then you just keep hitting U from within each message to hop up the queue?
Yeah.
And they've got a little bit of that. The U keyboard shortcut is still there, but it goes to the newest one, and it doesn't work when you have the filter on, and you've got the gesture there, the kind of to the side and then down or up, but that doesn't work within the filter view either. So I'd kind of like to see that improved a little bit, but on the whole, it's still way easier to plow through messages on here than on anything else.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's power communicator, awesome tool. Whew. What do we want to talk about next? More passport stuff? Any other, Blaze thoughts? You did a great job on the review. I thought you could do a little bit more in the video. I'm not going to be honest. It was a little shorter. I wanted to hear more of you, see more of it in action. Show off the keyboard, speed test, gesture.
Let's hear about Blend. I haven't spent any time really playing around with that, but Chris, you're really into it, right?
Yeah, I love Blend mainly because I've been following it for so long that I actually know what's going on in there. But
Blaze gave birth to Blend.
Well, I kind of discovered it unknowingly and then realized that it was actually essentially BBM on the desktop. But I told you they had it for years.
I was waiting for that. If you go back to CrackBerry Podcast 004, where Blaze makes his first appearance, it's like, BBM is going to come on, it's on desktops now, they're going to release it.
Telling you, man. But yeah, I like Blend, and Blend, there's a lot more to BlackBerry Blend than what people actually can see. Like, what I noted in my mentions of it was that it's a really cool consumer thing at this point in time. Consumers look at it, they use it, and they think it's really cool because it gives them their access to their BBM, their files, and everything directly from their BlackBerry onto their desktop or onto their Android tablets or iPads, whatever the case may be. And that's really cool. That's really awesome. There's a lot of people out there that will actually use Blend in that manner. But Blend also has essentially an enterprise side. So they're eventually going to be tapping into Blend to go ahead and sell subscription-based services directly for Blend and IT administrators. It will essentially allow them to be able to go ahead and access work-side files and everything like that without the need of having to, hop onto a corporate VPN or anything like that to be able to access all of that stuff. So it totally has a great consumer aspect to it in the fact that, yeah, you can access your BBM, you can access your calendar, you can access all that stuff directly from your device as a consumer, but there's also a major enterprise focus there that we haven't even necessarily seen yet because BlackBerry isn't fully ready to divulge the details of how they're going to be rolling out Blend across enterprises. They have enterprise customers testing it right now, and it's in beta for a number of them. I can't remember the exact number. I think it was over 1,000 enterprise customers that have it in beta and are utilizing it that way. But yeah, it's been one of those things that I've been excited for a long period of time, and it fits into essentially how I work. Like Simon and Kevin know, if you're sitting at your desk, then chances are you're also picking up your BlackBerry, or anybody who works from home or in an office where you have to sit in front of a computer all day long. You know that you're either picking up your BlackBerry and you're looking at it and you're doing something on the computer, putting your BlackBerry down, picking it up, putting it down. This takes all of that and throws it out the window. You don't need to even have your BlackBerry in the exact same room anymore. Your BlackBerry can be in your bedroom, it can be in the kitchen, it can be on the charger somewheres, whatever the case may be. You still have access to all of those things that are happening on your BlackBerry. So
I'm going to be honest, I haven't even used Blend much yet, so I'm going to bust that out after this podcast. I tried installing it a couple weeks ago off that leaked, whatever version we had, but it wasn't working on my Mac, but I'll get it set up now. I want to use it.
It'll change your life, Kevin.
I kind of believe that it will, and then the next podcast I'm going to be, oh my god, Blend is the best!
But yeah, it gives you access to your BBM, it gives you access to your email, it gives you access to BBM channels, it gives you, access directly to Box and Dropbox and all that stuff. You can drag and drop files directly onto your media card or your device, or from your device, so on and so forth. A lot of people, for some reason, seem to think that it's a BlackBerry Link replacement, which isn't necessarily true. For some people, it will be a BlackBerry Link replacement, as long as what you're doing in BlackBerry Link only involves, moving files around and stuff like that. BlackBerry Blend is not going to back up your device or save any of your settings or anything along those lines. However, if you just want to move music from your device or move music to your device, BlackBerry Blend can do that. All you have to do is just drag and drop it directly on there. The other cool thing is with the file structure, it works dependent upon your host, whatever it's running on, the host that it's running on. So say, for example, I have a video that's on my memory card on my BlackBerry Passport. So if I'm sitting here, I don't have to pick up my BlackBerry Passport in order to watch that video. I can hop onto my Passport, access the media card through Blend, open up that file that is on my media card of my BlackBerry Passport on the computer, and it will just start playing in like whatever VLC player, media player,
right,
whatever your computer or host system is actually set up to use to play videos. And that's the same for music and everything like that as well, and pictures and so on and so forth. So all of that stuff is instantly accessible directly to you, all through BlackBerry Blend. So again, it's not going to be a full-on Link replacement or anything like that, but it does offer a lot of things that BlackBerry Link offers directly through its installation as well. So you're not going to back up your device with it, at least not as of yet, but you can do file transfers and stuff like that, which is really cool. It makes it a hell of a lot easier, especially for people who don't, really like to install BlackBerry Link or anything. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. I'm excited to see where they actually take BlackBerry Blend, because, like I said, it does have a way more enterprise-based structure than what it is on the consumer side. The consumer side is just a glimpse. It's not even like the tip of the iceberg as to what BlackBerry Blend is actually capable of. So hopefully BlackBerry Blend will be a portion that actually pulls back some of those service revenues for BlackBerry, because a lot of the enterprises will actually be able to use it. It can, if done right, it can actually save thousands and thousands of dollars on the enterprise side, which is a good thing. Companies like saving money.
So one thing that's really interesting to me about Blend is the iPad client. Have you had a chance to play around with that at all, Chris? Is it running stably?
Yeah, I downloaded it. I actually never got to use it on an iPad until probably about 2 days ago. But I was answering a question in the CrackBerry forums about how many devices can actually connect to Blend at the same time. Is there a user limit on it? And I gathered up all the devices that I possibly could around here, so I was sitting around with like 9 devices all logged into BlackBerry Blend. But once I was done, testing it out, I tried it on the iPad, and it works absolutely great. Like my passport was in the bedroom sitting on the charger, and I was sitting out here BBMing people and answering emails and everything directly on there. I did find that the iOS client was probably a little bit slow, but also, before I say that definitively, the internet that we have isn't exactly the greatest either, so that may have been a factor in it. The Android client works pretty much the exact same way as well. The iOS client is a little bit prettier, though.
So I want to talk a little more about the launch event, because obviously you guys were both there. I was watching from a distance. I thought, my highlights, John Chen was John Chen. He's funny, he does his thing. I thought Gadway did a great job walking through the product. Some high-risk demos in there too that all went smooth, which is pretty good. Always a good effort when you do that. I thought it was interesting the amount of time they spent on BlackBerry Assistant.
Yeah.
Because that's something, and I guess this is a user thing, but for me, even on all phones, right, that I use, I never touch the voice stuff that much. I still like to tap away.
Yeah. Me too.
But have you guys spent much time on it? Do you think it's working as well as you need it to? I mean, it showed off some cool things.
I think with BlackBerry Assistant, like you said, it's one of those things that you either use it a lot or you don't use it a lot. And for me, I don't really use that a lot. I never use Siri a lot. I never use, whatever Google Now is. I never use that a lot either. But in the time that I did spend with it, it seemed to work pretty correctly. And, the results were fine on it. It starts pulling in results from Yelp and Wolfram Alpha. And, you really can do probably what I would consider more advanced things with it. Like, you can yell very specific things at BlackBerry Assistant, and the majority of the time, it's actually going to do those things. Like, you can create emails, you can just randomly yell, hey, remind me on December 25th to pick up my fiance's gift. And it will actually take that, and it will add it in as a reminder. It doesn't do so good with names, but that's almost to be expected nowadays. It really screws up Mitchell. But I don't know. I've never actually really used Siri enough and Google Now enough to compare it, I suppose, on a grand scale. But for me, everything that I've requested it to do, it actually has done. So.
Okay, that's another one. I gotta give it some more dedicated love. I've just been in love with the phone for what I want it to do. I haven't even gone beyond what it can do into blend and much.
I find with assistant apps, it's also very reliant upon the network. So.
Yeah. As far as the rest of the event goes, Kevin, I think it was really obvious that there was a big play there to win back Canada as BlackBerry's home turf. They trotted out Wayne Gretzky there. And I think that was interesting. I think it's certainly something that.
What happened with the great one? Did he forget his glasses or something, so that he couldn't read the teleprompters?
No, I think he was probably in a kerfluffle because his daughter is now pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Really? That news broke a day or two before on TMZ. So.
Okay, no, I mean, it was interesting, right? It was, he was nervous. Not a big deal, right? Whatever, it happens to everybody, but I was just kind of like, oh, shit, it happens even to the great one. That's cool. Everybody else in the world who's ever gotten nervous should not feel bad, because it can even happen to the greatest people on the planet.
Exactly, that's why I didn't give too much. It
was endearing. Endearing things are good. So I thought it was kind of, awesome, but it was awesome that he was there.
I messed up my BlackBerry Blend video because I was nervous talking about it. So I don't feel so bad. The great one screwed up its classical lines. So whatever, man.
Yeah. And they also spent a lot of time in the presentation talking about enterprise apps. They had local developers there showing off enterprise solutions, the cool medical one where you can view 3D models of charts and stuff like that. And I think that part of it, the whole enterprise angle, is kind of interesting for a device like this, where on the one hand, you got a screen with really high pixel density, quad-core processor, and it has all the makings of a splashy kind of consumer device, bit bigger camera. I think it's up to 13 megapixels now, and also like the event itself taking place in a sports bar. That doesn't exactly scream enterprise and business user, right? It was, it seemed like an interesting venue choice. And then they start talking about, oh man, you can see full spreadsheets in this without having to scroll left and right. And so I got kind of mixed signals in that sense, but I suppose that goes to speak to the prosumer audience, right? Where you're talking about like high-flying executives that want to have a really shiny device, even if they're going to be spending most of their time just reading emails on it.
No, totally makes sense. The venue looked okay. Like from the live blog perspective, it looked like not a huge. It wasn't like the BB10 launch event, obviously, which was
a
crazy epic, but it seemed like a solid setup.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like, and totally a first world complaint, is that there wasn't enough tables there. Like, because we were all trying to blog, and me and Simon are sitting there with our laptops literally on our laps, and we're just trying to blog away, which made it a little bit difficult to pound our way through it. But that was my only complaint. And again, very first world problem. I don't, whatever.
I was sad I wasn't there because that's like the first BlackBerry event I've missed since '07. But tuning in from home and everything, and having you guys there, it was honestly just as good, and no travel involved.
Probably gave you a different look on it as well. I mean, because like you said, you're usually at the event, so.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Overall, I enjoyed it. So.
What else do we have? We got. Well, BlackBerry had their earnings call and earnings report. I think things are kind of, they went up a little, they went down a little. Now they're hovering around that $10 mark.
Yeah.
It looks like they're on the way back to some profitability, though, and maybe if the Passport sales kick in, we'll see it happen ahead of schedule. So that's seems positive. It seems like they've done a really good job of cutting costs, even ahead of their schedule.
And they still have $3.1 billion in the bank.
Yeah. Oh, and they got a lot of people on. The headcount is still very sizable, right? So I feel like it's not like they reduced it to. They haven't mothballed the company to have 50 people running a skeleton crew around there, which is gonna keep the numbers good for a couple months, but then eventually you're gonna not have the people and crash and burn. Like assuming they have the right people in the right positions, it feels like the head count and where they're at should be enough that they keep building while they sell and while they're operating, which is good.
Did they say that the cost reduction measures were kind of over with, that they weren't going to keep laying off people?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're always going to be looking to do things, but like their plan of like this is what we were going to do for cost savings, I think they said we got it done ahead of schedule, and we're starting to see the benefit of those savings in the numbers. So.
And John Chen was rather funny about that at the launch event as well, because he's talking about all these different leaked memos, and he's telling people, you didn't get a copy of that? I could send that out to you.
Well, it's pretty clever. It makes you wonder. It's like, it wasn't supposed to leak, but it did. It's like, it's not bad when those things leak sometimes. I'm sure it happens. Maybe they did it, maybe they didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when the CEO actually acknowledges it, though. It's just like, and even this morning we saw that, they appointed Mike Daniels to the board of directors, so they're still adding people. They're still investing. They got SecuSmart. They got what's that? Mo Virtue. I can't pronounce it.
Right.
So they're still investing in companies as well, which is interesting because I don't think a lot of people actually expected them to really go out and invest in other companies that would help them in their situation. It for a while there, it almost sounded like just a line, like they were saying to be, we're going to go ahead and invest. That sounds like a line at that point in time, but they really did it. They went out, they bought SecuSmart, they got the dual SIM company, virtual SIM company, and they keep adding people in. I believe John Chen said that they were actually going back and hiring some more talent as well. So all the at least in the Waterloo area, well, they never really stopped, to be honest. There were still advertisements on LinkedIn and stuff like that for job placements within BlackBerry, but it seems like they're they're ramping up more of the actual hiring, so that's good.
Well, and probably in more specific areas where now they know, what they have their vision sort of relayed out, and they need to just find people, I'm sure, to fill in specific gaps and needs that exist now that maybe didn't in the past, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of had BlackBerry the way it was operating, and now you've had a whole bunch of change, and now you have a new, target they're aiming for. So takes change.
And Chen seems that he's pretty reliable when he says that he's going to do stuff, and if he says that they're going to end up being profitable, then who's to argue with him at this point? He hasn't failed yet, I guess is the best way to put it. So
yeah. No, it's true. I mean, he's I think even things like Z3 sales in Indonesia are doing decently well there, right? So it's things are lining up, right? It's a different company, a lot of changes happening, yet at the same time as all that change has happened, some things seem to be remaining the same. And like I said, feels like you're kind of rewind the clock back 6 years or something, 7 years, and we're back at that point, which, I haven't done the comparison revenue-wise and quarters-wise, right? Because obviously their sales used to be smaller and the number's not as big, so I don't know if the numbers are there too. I haven't looked to check, but they're at a point where they're poised to grow again, I guess, assuming they've bottomed out. And I think Chen said that they've, they're sort of maybe not quite bottomed out on where they think revenue will go to before they have to climb again, or before it starts climbing again. But it's approaching that, because obviously they are losing service revenues as BB7 phones get replaced with other phones and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and then they're replacing supposedly replacing all of that. At least that's the goal, to replace it with key support and BES licenses and such.
Yeah.
Which is always interesting as well, to see how they're actually going to go ahead and replace that, because a lot of that service revenue actually came from the carriers.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But at least if he gets it done, then you don't have to worry about it. That'll be all banked money at that point in time.
So, what do you guys want to do next? Should we wrap it up? It's an amazing podcast, or you want to go a little longer so we can ruin it, because it's so good?
I think that's a good point to wrap it up.
Yeah. Don't give us the opportunity to ruin it. That's the worst. If you give us the opportunity, we're sure as hell going to do it.
Blaze for editor-in-chief. He makes our podcast not suck.
If you already gave me that position, you can't re-give it to me.
Wait, does it still say interim or not? You should delete the interim if it still says that.
I totally already deleted it because because everybody was asking me, and I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna go in and change it.
Well, now I'm sad. Now I'm officially out of a job.
Let
me look. I'm looking here. Does it do that even on our Mobile Nations page? No, you gotta delete it here. Go to mobilenations.com. It still says interim editor-in-chief.
All right, well.
Get James to update that for you.
I made an editorial decision on the sites, at least.
Good job. That's what a good EIC does. You make decisions.
Exactly. All right, so I guess that's a good spot to wrap it up. Kevin, do you want to take us out, or?
No, it's your honor. It was a pleasure being here, joining you, though, and thank you for allowing me to rant at the beginning and unload, and hopefully for CrackBerry readers who didn't like the last podcast, which I thought was good. I don't know, maybe it was early in the morning and I was tired. Hopefully you enjoyed this one.
I honestly didn't actually listen to the other one fully yet.
Well, apparently you shouldn't, because it wasn't very good. So.
Well, I think I might, because it's not often that I actually sit down and get to watch a podcast, so I'll watch it.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Simon Sage, thank you for joining us on this episode 119 of CrackBerry.com podcast. Where can we find you?
You can find me all over the place. I'm on imore.com, Android Central, CrackBerry whenever they ask me to go to events and play with new devices. And every once in a while on Windows Phone Central. You can find me on Twitter as @SimonSage.
I love taking Simon to events because he's like the biggest dude in the world, and everybody notices you. It's like
it's It's really handy at CES in Vegas where there's lineups of just hundreds of people, and it's like, Simon, find everybody. And he's like, there.
Yeah.
Follow the guy, follow the head.
So totally awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this CrackBerry podcast. We don't know when the next one will be. It could be today, later today. It could be tomorrow. It might.
Well, it's not going to be later today. But
hey, you never know. You never know. That's the point.
Why would you record another podcast today?
You never know.
No, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Either way, thank you for joining us. That's it for us at crackberry.com. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.